Hi everyone, and welcome to today's tutorial. My name is Ryan Boyle, and I'm going to show you how to create this rigid body effect here in After Effects using the plugin Newton. Now, if you've never used Newton before, it's a great 2D physics simulator, and you can create things like gravity, collides, bounce, and stuff like that. And we're going to take that and we're going to apply it to a character we create in Illustrator. Alright, so let's go ahead and cover a few of the basics real quick. So the way Newton works is your objects need to have a mask on it in order to calculate the edges. So if you have an illustration or photo or a shape or even text, you need to make sure it's a mask object or has a mask on it. So this way, when you take it into Newton, it can basically detect where the edges are and apply the simulations like bounces and collides and stuff like that. Alright, so now I'm going to show you how to set up a basic rig here, and then we're going to apply it to a character we created in Illustrator. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a solid, and I'm going to go ahead and name this arm. And let's go ahead and create a mask, and we're going to draw out an arm shape here. And this will basically be our lower arm. Next, what I'm going to do is duplicate this arm, and this will be our upper arm. And now what we need to do is we need to create an elbow shape to basically attach the lower arm to the right arm, and also create a little hinge so this way it can rotate and swing along the axis here. So I'm going to take the mask tool, and with my upper arm selected, I'm going to draw a circle mask, and then I'm going to draw a second one right in the center of that one. And I'm going to change it from add to subtract, so this way it cuts a hole in this little mask. And then with my lower arm selected, I'm going to draw a little dot here, and this is going to be the joint right in the center here. Now if you remember what I talked about before, how Newton uses mask to create outlines and detect the edge of an object, what we're going to do is basically this little hinge here won't go past this little second outer circle. So let's go ahead and go into Newton, and by default it's going to ask me, because it detected multiple masks on a shape, it's going to ask me if I want to split them into different shapes. By default, I do not want to do this. I want to go ahead and hit skip because I want it to read these as one shape instead of taking the mask and split into different shapes. So now when we're in Newton, if I take my arm, and let's go ahead and make this an aematic, and this will create a little pin at the very top here. And what happens is if I go ahead and let's turn off the floor, and this way the lower arm doesn't connect to that. If I hit solve, you can see we have this little hinge joint, and that little ball never went past that little mask circle that we created. Now this is a basic setup we're going to use for our character rig. So now in Illustrator, you can see I have my character here, and I broke up all the different layers into different things like the leg, the arm, the head, and the body. And then up at the very top, you'll see a Newton mask. If I turn that on, and what you see is I basically created the same kind of mask skeletal rig that we did in our previous example, but I applied it to the entire body, basically creating hinges and joints along different parts of the body. So we have different ones for the arms, the upper arm, the body, and the leg. And now what I can do is I can go back into After Effects here, and I can go ahead and apply this mask to something like my body shape here. So with this selected, I can go ahead and apply this mask, and we'll set these up to different sections. Now if I turn this on, you can see here's my little Newton mask, and you see how it lines up with the skin. Now by default, if I wanted to, I could technically go through and draw a custom mask for my character. I could, but it will take a while depending on how complex my scene is. The best part about Illustrator is that I can go back into it and I can copy my shape here, and I can go back into After Effects and select the shape, and I can go ahead and paste it. So basically it will paste the vector illustration I created in Illustrator and paste it as a mask in After Effects. So there we go. It's a little off, but I can go ahead and move it into the center where I need it to be. And let's go ahead and do the same thing for the body. I'll go back into Illustrator. We'll select our mask, and we'll go ahead and paste it onto the body. There we go, and we'll slide it into place, making sure that little circle right there, that little joint, matches up, so this way we don't want to go outside or break our rig. Now I don't want this mask to actually take away from my illustration, so what I want to do is I'm going to select the shapes, and I'm going to click on M to display the mask, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the mask shapes I created, and I'm going to switch them from different to none. Now what this is going to do is still going to retain the pixels I created in After Effects, but even though it's not turned on, Newton will still register the mask for all the collisions, but I'll still be able to see my character in its full skin. Now if I look at it, I can see how my character is set up with all the different joints. If I click on the arms and legs, you can see how they're all lined up. And here's a basic example of our setup. We basically created the skeletal system, and we have our illustration, which is the skin. And now let's go into Newton, and we'll see how this affects our character. Now once again, we're going to get this little warning asking us to separate the mask. I'm going to tell it not to. I'm going to tell it to skip. Next, I'm going to turn off my background layer. And then I'm going to turn my floor to static, and we'll go ahead and just go ahead and hit solve. And there you go. You can see how all the different joints are all connected. And he's basically very, right now he's being affected by gravity, so he falls over. But we can go ahead and select him, and we can go ahead and turn down his mesh precision here. And it's going to kind of speed up a little bit of the calculation. And we can see, there we go, he falls over. But now we can basically, let's turn up the steps per frame. And let's increase the density. And we can increase the friction and the bounce ratio, and let's go ahead and increase the collision tolerance. There we go. And I'm going to bring up his friction just a little bit more, and let's go ahead and bring up the density as well. And there you go. So now he's not falling over. So depending on your rig and your skeletal system, you may have to play with some of the settings here to get the right effect you're looking for. But as you can see, we can create a basic character setup here in After Effects using Newton. So next what we're going to do is we're going to go over a couple of different case studies of how you can apply this to different animations. So in this chapter we'll take a look at how you can create this basic stairwell scene, and we'll test out our Newton character rig. So here we are in After Effects. You can see I have a null here, and I parented my character to it so I can move him around or rotate him any way I want. And then let's see, we have a solid shape here that we've applied to mask to create our stairwell. And this is going to basically, our character is going to fall along this. And if I look at my character, you can see we have the basic setup that we created in the last example. So I'm going to go into Newton. I'm going to turn my background to off, and let's take the stairs and convert them into static. And let's go ahead and do a solve, and you can see as my character falls, he's starting to break apart a little bit, and it's going to happen because his rig system is a little bit, the rigs are a little bit thinner, and there's a lot of force and there's a lot of collision, and anytime you have that, it's going to force the mask and everything like that to pop and break, which is kind of what I want for this character, because that's why I created him as a crash test dummy. So let's go ahead and turn his friction down and his bounciness up, and let's make him a little bit heavier. And you can see we can get a different effect now. He's not going to fall as far because the friction is down. But if we want him to slide all the way down the stairs, we should turn it up a lot. And now you can see he's just going to keep sliding down. And there goes his legs and his other arms. And now he's basically just a head and a torso, which is, I guess, kind of gruesome right now. But it's kind of the effect that we're creating here, and you can see him all broken up. So let's go ahead and apply this to our scene. We can go ahead and apply, and we'll get this little drop down, and we'll get the option to apply new comp and to enable motion blur. By default, you're really going to want to apply to the new comp. It's going to create a new comp to apply these keyframes to, which is good because you might want your original comp to go back into to apply other effects to or make any changes. So you really don't want to mess with your original comp. When it's done calculating, just go ahead and go back into AE, and let's go, and you can see it created a stairs 2 comp, and we can click on our character, and you can see all the keyframes it baked in from the simulation. And we'll scrub through, and you can see our character falling. There we go. And now let's go ahead and click render, and we'll see the final effect. And there you go. We have our character falling down the stairs as he breaks apart and shatters into just a torso and a head. Great. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple other concepts we can create with this effect. So in this chapter, what we're going to do is cover the basics of the gravity feature in Newton. So basically here in my After Effects scene, you can see I have my character, and he has the basic setup and rig that we created earlier. And let's go ahead, and you can see I have my floor object here with my mask. Now I want him to collide with the sides and the ceiling, so I need to create that. So I'm using the mask tool. I'm going to go ahead and add these little simple basically sides here. Now I don't even have to close the mask for Newton to register the edges here. So I'm going to go into Newton, and we're going to tell it to skip. And now here in Newton, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my background and set my floor to static. And now let's go ahead and just turn down the precision here so I can and density just to kind of speed up the process. And over here by the gravity, I'm going to hit capture and I'm going to start solving. Now if I grab this little like green little pick whip here, and I can move it up and down, and the further I drag it, the more the magnitude increases, and I can also control the direction and stuff like that. Now this is basically keyframing all this motion in real time right now. So all the stuff is happening, it's capturing all the motion, and let's go ahead and let go of this right here. And I'm going to tell it to stop capturing it, and then now I can tell it to apply, and you can see it basically creates this little null object. And if I hit solve now, it's basically baked those motion and those tracking points into our scene. So I can go through, and you can see here we have a little null object here it's going to create, and this is where it's going to parent all of our keyframes to. So there we go, it's containing all the gravity information in there. And now I can go back into my settings of the character, and I can adjust his friction, the density, the bounciness, with all those keyframes already baked into it. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what that looks like. And there you go, there's the basics of how to use the gravity feature in Newton. So let's go ahead and take a look at some more case studies here. So in this scene, what we're going to do is we're going to cover how you can basically take keyframes you created manually in After Effects and use those to affect your different collisions in Newton. So what we're going to do is in After Effects here, we'll take a look at our character, and you can see he's got the basic rig system that we created before. And we also created a cube with different masks, and as well as tables, a chair, and a couple other things. And they all have masks, so this way they can all collide with each other. So with my cube selected, I'm going to go ahead and hit the rotation. And we're going to tell it to, let's go over to the end here, a couple frames. And let's tell it to rotate, let's do like maybe twice, 2 loops here. There we go. And now when we look at it, you can see we have a spinning cube right now, and we're going to use this to affect our simulations in Newton. So let's go ahead and go into Newton real quick. There we go. And then with this, I'm going to tell it to skip, and let's go ahead. The first thing we need to do is turn the background off real quick. There we go. Now for my cube, I don't want to make it static. I want to actually convert it into a kinematic object. And what this is going to do is still going to affect our objects, but it's going to retain the keyframes we created in After Effects. So there we go. Now when I preview it, you can see as it's spinning, all the objects that are set to dynamic are all colliding with each other. So let's go back in and take the picture frames, and let's make them an aematic. This will basically allow them to kind of pin to the wall. You can see these little pins. If I solve, you can see they droop a little bit here. If I want them to droop a little bit further, I can actually affect the threshold and the damping. There we go. Now let's go ahead and take our character. Let's take the precision down just a little bit right now, and let's increase his bounciness, decrease the friction, increase the density, and let's go ahead and make the chair and the table and the TV really heavy. Take their friction down and turn down their bounciness as well, and let's preview, and there you go. Now you can see here's our character. He's spinning, all the objects are colliding, and he is getting pummeled so hard in this scene. Yikes. Alright, so let's go ahead and apply this to our scene, and you can see here's our keyframes all baked in. And now let's go ahead and render this out, and there you go. There's our final scene with our spinning cube and our character just getting pummeled. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at another case study and effects you can apply. Alright, so in this scene we're going to go ahead and recreate this kind of Thor scene where the character recalls his hammer and basically gets pummeled by it. So in After Effects, basically what we have is we have our character, and he's attached to a null. And if I look at him, you can see he's got the basic character rig we set up before. And I have my hammer up here, and you can see when I click on it, you can see it's got a mask on it as well as keyframes. And this is basically the animation that we have. So it shakes a little bit as he's summoning it, and it comes towards him, and it basically flies past him. And what we want to do is actually affect him, like basically crash into him, explode, and we also want to knock off the TV behind him. So what we need to do is let's go ahead and go into Newton, and we'll tell it to skip, and we'll go ahead, and if you can tell, this little block here, that's my helmet. This is what it looks like when you don't add a mask to your object here. So we need to add a mask to this for it to work, but for right now we're going to turn it off, as well as I'm going to turn off my background. And if I just go ahead and hit solve real quick, you can see what happens. Everything falls. This is because we need to set our floor to be static. And let's go ahead and solve now. Now you see everything just kind of falls off, or our keyframes that we created are not being affected, or not being used. They've been overwritten. So what we need to do is select our character, convert him to a kinematic, as well as the hammer. And if I hit solve, you can see here's our keyframes still being used in our scene. Here's a hammer, and then boom, it hits the TV, but it does not hit him because they're both kinematic objects. So what we need to do is we need to basically duplicate this character and make one for a kinematic and one basically we're going to go ahead and make him a dynamic. So I'm going to select my character parts. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this character, and then I'm going to copy them above the null here. And I'm going to just change the label to be a different color so I can tell the difference. So we have 2. And now I'm going to basically crop this section here right where the hammer hits marker I set up. And I'm going to make this before. There we go. So basically we're going to see this animation that we set up happen. And then right before the hammer hits the character, it's going to switch into a dynamic element. So right before it hits there, it's going to switch into our Newton simulation. There we go. So let's go ahead and add a mask to our Illustrator character here. There we go. And now when we're done, we'll go ahead and switch the mask for the helmet to be none. So this way it doesn't remove the pixels. And then now with my character selected, I'm going to go ahead and just turn these layers off. I actually just want to hide this so this way it's not affected in Newton. And then I'm going to go into Newton and tell it to skip. And then I'm going to turn my background off again. And then I'm going to set my floor to be static. And let's just turn the friction and the bounciness down. There we go. And let's make the hammer kinematic so it keeps those keyframes. And so by default, let's just go ahead and hit solve. Now you can see my character is blacked out because he's not visible right now. You'll see the color change. There you go. Now he's active, and now he's visible, and now you can see the keyframes being basically created right now. And it's kind of a comical scene right now, the fact that it just left his feet and the helmet is all that's left basically from the impact. So let me go back into the character. Let's turn some of these down, just some of the object settings here. There we go. And let's go and take a look at this. So we have our character running the simulation again. Here comes the hammer, and then boom. So there we go. We got a little bit more spin, and the helmet didn't go as far. So now that we're done with that, we'll go ahead and apply this to our After Effects scene. And when I look through my elements, you can see all the different keyframes we created. And there you go. So let's go ahead and render this out and see what it looks like. And there you go. There's how you can set up a basic character rig in After Effects using the Newton plugin. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.